Hello.
everyone.
Hi.
How are you all together? We have several people on LinkedIn online today, not so much on YouTube.
We'll
But
get
yes, we
there.
have an interesting topic today. And the topic today is platform engineering. Platform engineering is actually quite important if you want to have a platform because you need to engineer it. And this is the reason why we wanted to talk about that. I think we've touched the topic here and there with Dennis together on this show.
Hmm.
But if we even announce that we want to talk about a subset of this topic, like platform as a service for very small companies and startups as a factor, but never the platform engineering aspect itself. And this is the reason why we invited again for the third time, I think,
Hmm.
Brian Finster today,
People are getting
who
bored of me.
No way.
exactly. And
We'll kick you out
you're
when it gets too much. Don't worry.
no, we
For
don't.
those who are counting, this is OTJ number 21, and this is Brian's third appearance.
I think
So,
you are the
so
only
he,
one who's counting the show.
I keep doing the thumbnails on the main announcements and the promotions, so I am keeping track
So
on
Brian,
that end.
there's a purpose behind that you want to be on the show today. Let's say it is a little bit about you planning something special in that regard, and you want to use the session today for something. Is that correct, or am I hallucinating right now?
This will absolutely help me solidify my talk for Platform Con. I have a spot to speak on, and I don't have a solidified topic yet, so I
Hmm.
definitely need to nail this down.
Which means that the audience today, which is growing right now, which is great, is or shall be motivated to please give us enough feedback and Brian feedback about what you think about the topic, what you want to hear
Hmm.
about, questions you have, so we got an understanding, a better understanding what your current situation regarding platforms is. May it be platform engineering, no platform whatsoever, or platform as a service or something like that. Just give us some feedback about what's going on there.
and well,
Yeah.
and that, for me personally, that's really important. I give a lot of talks, and none of them are marketing fluff.
Hmm.
They're all based off of problems I know people have, but I really need to know what problems people have and to see if I have something useful to say about that.
Okay.
Okay.
I started a poll on today's topic just as the stream started, just to give people, for those of you who are shy or don't want to be publicly seen commenting, I'm making it a little bit easier. So I'm dropping a link in chat with a poll. The poll is basically, how do you do DevOps, right? So how does your dev side integrate with your ops side?
Yeah.
Do you, and the options I gave on the poll are um, A, our devs do ops. B, there's a dedicated ops team for SRE and systems. C, there's a platform team. There is a or many platform teams that provide a service internally. And number 4, we have a mix of staff engineers and developer experience who create tooling.
You forgot
Um,
YAML. You left off YAML.
YAML. No one. It's just a YAML config file. I mean, Adrian likes that approach with
Yeah,
on.
yeah, we have that for, but this is not really for platform engineering. This is for
Mhm.
platform as a service. So
Yeah.
the platform is already engineered as a product, and it is broken down to an abstracted version expressed in YAML, which
Hmm.
comes close to Docker Compose. It is the same structure, nearly
Yeah.
the same structure, and this is actually what's then possible. But when we come to infrastructure as code, I think that a single YAML file, especially for large systems, is not the case. So correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm thinking more of something like Terraform or something like that in
Hmm.
that moment. But I'm here to learn today as well. So please give us some feedback from the audience as well. Maybe we have some people here. So I have my digital ocean cap today on. So Just
We need merch. We need some DigitalOcean, OTJ, Defense Unicorns merch.
I have Semi here. This is this shark, and I have a T-shirt. Oh, how is it working? There.
Yeah.
This is a DigitalOcean T-shirt.
I really regret never getting any of the PHP elephants. You know, when they still had the
Defense
PHP
Unicorn.
plushie.
Safe. We even got Valentine's Day Doug stickers sent to us.
So the unicorn on the Defense Unicorn logo is called Doug.
Yeah, his name that's Doug, the Defense
Doug.
Unicorn. Yeah.
Awesome.
Okay.
So
how are we going to do or start today? So we only have a very rough agenda again, which is good. So it's on purpose. Maybe we need to have some introduction, I think. Not so much about the people today, but I would say about what platform engineering actually is. And the question would be from my side, since we have the guest, so Brian is a guest today here. So Brian, would you like to introduce, out of your perspective, what platform engineering is for the common company? So for a company where everyone can a little bit, let's say, relate to. So let's say not AWS and not the one person startup. So the more traditional type of company. What is platform engineering?
Well, I want to start with the goals, because I think, recently, in the last couple of years, it's been fetishized way more than it should be. It's really, really boring. The goal is to make mistakes harder to make while making it easier to deliver, against certain like product goals at the same time, right? So make it harder to make mistakes and easier to deliver. And those things are frequently in conflict because you want to go fast, which means it's easier to make mistakes. But we have all these things that make it harder to make mistakes. And by mistakes, I don't even mean like you delivered something that wasn't tested well. I'm talking about, is it compliant? Do we follow all of our policies? In the case of like retail, are we avoiding blackout windows for delivery for like Black Friday or Christmas Day? You don't want to ship on those days. It's just far too much risk to the business. And platform engineering is like just engineering that balance. But, making just automating the boring stuff that's easy to screw up. But the thing that I'd like to really point to is that every single developer should be doing platform engineering. It's not a role. I mean, yes, you have platform engineering roles for people that are focusing on delivering like developer, internal development platforms, that sort of thing.
Or exclusively on
Yeah.
platform.
But if you're doing any sort of product development, I mean, surely you're doing things like automated lint checks before you push to the remote. Are we doing spell checking on documentation, or it's just like the basics of how do we just automate some of the things that we don't want to remember all of the time. It's just make them happen.
Okay, could you please describe in detail
Yeah.
what, in your idea, is the platform itself? So not platform engineering. What is the platform? Where does it start? Where does it end?
No, I mean, so a platform is anything that allows us to do the job better. I mean, if you're a carpenter, a nail gun is a platform. A hammer is a platform. Nail gun is just a better platform for nails for most use cases. For us, an IDE is a platform. GitHub is a platform. Now, if you are talking about, want to be very specific about, I want an end-to-end platform that'll allow me to deliver from idea to production, then there's all sorts of products that have to be linked together to create that platform to implement all those capabilities required to get that done. And then you have platforms that help enable that, like, database as a service or infrastructure as a service. So these things where my previous company, I could go into a GUI and request a new database, and I would get a link to a new database that I could then go and modify the schema on my own. I didn't have to go talk to somebody to go, please go install a database for me.
Mhm.
And so those, they're just tools to make it easier to do our jobs.
I think just wanted to say I asked the question because I think that many people, especially in the audience, please let us know if this is true what I say right now or it's just a hallucination of me. Is platform engineering describes the infrastructure side. So this is what I think most people understand when it comes to platform engineering. Some company or some freelancer is providing the infrastructure for your developers. So this is what I see most often, especially on LinkedIn. Companies like Humanitech, for example, talking about that. This is always about you create something which someone else shall consume. A little bit like the platform as a service idea, where platform as a service is always about infrastructure. But then we have something like the other hand, where people talk about IDEs, where most people think of the editor part, and many others say no, it's basically your editor. It is your, for example, Docker for desktop. It is everything you have locally to develop, which is the same on every developer device, right? This is the reason why I wanted to clarify before we start what platform actually is. So as I understood it right, platform for you, Brian, is more than just the infrastructure. It is everything basically you base your development product onto. So basically everything outside of the design phase is coming onto this platform. Is it right, or would you integrate the design phase as well?
Well, I mean, it could be in design phase as well. So, like, if you're doing UX design and you have a tool to make that easier, right now I'm working with my team to make some major modifications to our company website, and we have a designer with a UX design tool that is we can then extract CSS directly from that, which then accelerates our ability to deliver. So that also is a platform. And I mean, VI is a platform. It's just a very minimal platform, right? But it allows you to edit better than you could if you're trying to type it in directly on the command line. And so it's just anything, to me, it's anything that makes it easier to do our jobs. And so is VI infrastructure? Absolutely it is, because it's like the framework I need to do my job.
Are we talking about platforms in this context as platform as code? Like I can have VI on my Mac accidentally. Like I would only say that this is deliberate if me wanting to have VI on my Mac has in some way been automatically provisioned, or maybe there's a package manager for it that says, like something like Puppet or Chef that says, hey, even a non-development machine will need VI because this is part of a standard platform for this kind of.
See, I always look at it from the point of view of outcomes, right? It's just the outcome I want is I want it to be easier to do my job and harder to make mistakes, right?
Okay.
So let's go back to the carpentry thing. So a hammer, it's really easy to bang your thumb with a hammer unless you're good at using a hammer. With a nail gun, it's a lot harder to bang your thumb because there's safeties. There's guardrails in place.
Well, you can shoot yourself
in the foot. Yeah.
You can shoot yourself with a nail gun, but you have to work at it because there's safety interlocks that are required before the nail will fire. And so that's the difference between like a minimal platform with no guardrails. You can use all kinds of things, and something with.
But that's a good distinction actually, because only a let's say moderately to high cost nail gun would have that safety feature.
No, they all have those safety features. There's no such thing as a low-end nail gun that doesn't have a safety interlock that means that you have to be pushed up against something before it'll fire.
So what I'm thinking is a safety interlock that requires high amount of pressure, and I'm assuming the sensitivity differs based on the cost of the tool.
So I grew up around construction. We could do a deep dive on this. You probably don't want to.
Just a side note, I used to watch a lot of documentations around the world regarding building stuff outdoors. And there were a lot of videos or documentations in the US, in Alaska and stuff like that. And it seems that in the USA, they are really, using or overusing those nail guns. I don't really know them here in Germany. Here we
Maybe
screw
it's an
everything
American thing.
together. And in America, everyone is firing those nails everywhere. So the house is full of nails, actually.
This is another thing about engineering, that screws are not really good for holding together wooden structures because wood flexes and screws are very rigid where nails bend slightly. So screws will stop.
They deteriorate at different rates. So
this is
material.
engineering. Understand the material, right? So a screw will just shear where a nail will flex, and that's why you use nails.
Interesting.
Vladdy has an interesting point. Vladdy, thank you for joining us. Vladdy says, for me, platform engineering is anything related to getting the work done, but I never went so far to consider the IDE or similar. I was thinking of infrastructure, local dev tools, and internal tools. What comes to my mind is GitOps or something adjacent to GitOps, Kubernetes clusters.
Yeah, but you say that, but then if you're going to be doing web development and you want a really good tool that's better than what you can get that's free, you're going to go get like WebSphere, right? If you're going to do Java development, you're going to be using something like IntelliJ, where it's a platform that enables that kind of work a lot better. So I can see
the distinction more in IntelliJ than Vim or VI, because with IntelliJ, I know that, okay, I might have a company license. There's several tools integrating there. I might have an AI license there to have something Copilot equivalent and other tools, TeamCity perhaps. So
even VS Code, though. So I use VS Code extensively.
Mm-hmm.
I use it because I spent decades using just VI for many reasons.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a lot lighter than Eclipse. But it still
don't talk to me about Eclipse.
But it still has a bunch of plugins to make my job easier. And these days, even a plugin to ChatGPT. And so I consider that IDE, it's an integrated development environment. It's a platform.
So it's interesting. So actually, I was getting into this conversation today with the idea that we're actually talking about the infrastructure part. But yes, it's true. Platform is actually more than just that. And I was too much in the context, which is ongoing on LinkedIn, where most of the people really talk about infrastructure. So
SREs, sysops, or
in 2 weeks we have the CloudFest here next to our HQ for 3 days. 10K people, our guests are coming all around cloud, and I know exactly that platform and everything is regarding infrastructure only. But it's true, if you think about the engineering aspect, you cannot just disconnect the infrastructure from your actual development. So it is a little bit like, yes, you can say, yeah, it's for example, Docker-based or container-based. Yes, but still, it must be connected in form of CI/CD pipeline, container registries. There's so much in between, which is a transition into your IDE. For example, you can make it that far that you have the output of your CI/CD pipeline displayed inside your IDE. So you have full overview of what's going on. Are we green? Are we red? Those kind of things are often missing. And yes, so that was actually already a good thing for me to know.
So Raul just asked a really important question that comes back to what I was about to say about what you were saying. For any level of platform engineering, the goal should be, I understand who my consumer is of this platform, and I want to make it easier for them to use this platform and harder for them to make mistakes with this platform. Right? And that's everything from low-level infrastructure all the way up to, high-level whatever, whatever the highest level platform you can put together, okay? It's that I know who my customer is, and I'm trying to help them. And this is why I like development platform work so much, is because I know who my customer is. I don't have to research them because I'm them, and I want to help them. But there's some warnings there as well, is that you can help them too much. You can help them so much that they don't understand what's going on. And if something breaks, they won't know how to fix it.
Yeah.
And so trying to find that balance of I'm making it easier for this is one of the reasons I rail against DevOps teams that go and configure delivery pipelines for product teams.
This is the typical jQuery and WordPress problem. Like you oversimplify, right? So anything, let's say UI or front-end related on the web it's changing so quickly and it's so complicated that nobody is really a master in it. So we have a bunch of tools and a bunch of platforms that allow you to have like some acceptable amount of proficiency without actually mastering it.
Well, it's actually worse than that, because specifically for delivery pipelines, every team's delivery pipeline, that is their quality control process. The only people qualified to talk about their quality control process is the team that's delivering the thing.
Using it the most, yeah.
They're the ones who know what should be added to that to make sure that they've certified their artifacts are releasable, okay? And which means you don't want to have a handoff to another team to configure that. And if you have a team that configures that for you and something breaks, then you have to call that team and say, hey, the pipeline broke and I don't know where, I don't understand. I need to modify it, but I don't know how to do that. I was talking to a friend of mine who's been doing platform engineering for a company, and they created a pipeline that was opinionated. It's so easy to use that nobody knew how to change it. And he's like, that was a mistake.
I see this a lot with staff augmentation in agency style freelancing or let's say nearshoring, especially in the sort of Germany, Berlin area, where you often find proposals that include, half of a DevOps. Right? So half time or 40 hours in a month of just DevOps work, of setting up some kind of opinionated pipeline like you just described.
Let's call it platform engineering work, because DevOps is something else entirely.
Yeah.
I mean,
we should not adopt the term
I'm very
DevOps in form of
conflicted.
infrastructure too much.
Yes, I'm
because
very
this
much
is actually
conflicted.
a mistake.
I'm very much conflicted on that usage, because I like to use the way it's used so people understand me, but even with the caveat that I understand that I'm not using it correctly. So
it depends on what communities you run in, how DevOps is understood.
Fair. Brian, do you know this book?
Oh, yeah, I'm like friends with the authors.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
So we're reading this in the book club. We're starting next week.
Yeah.
If anybody in the audience, book club next week, Monday. They have a very specific definition for the word platform. Is the way you just described it compatible to it, orthogonal to it? Are you using this terminology? Like, where are we?
What is their definition?
Well,
because it's easier for everyone to understand it when you read it.
I don't have the quote off the top of my head. I don't really want to be looking for it right now. I just want to make sure that we're sort of the same way that we're using DevOps. Let's say saying, hey, no, DevOps is actually your SDLC. Like that is the team. That is DevOps. DevOps is not SRE minus.
Yeah, it's how we convert ideas.
Right. So with the word DevOps, we already missed the mark.
Yeah.
And now we have this word platform, and I think the most common diagram from the book is that distinction of product engineering or sort of X as a service platform, and then feature teams. So, are you using a vocabulary that is compatible with the team topologies?
I think so. I mean, because you've got the platform that's elevating the teams trying to do the work. So what are the capabilities within the platform? It's anything that's helping the teams do their work.
So for those who are looking for it, it's in the preface. It's in the preface on page 20. So Roman numerals XX. And we have the yellow, purple, orange, and blue boxes. And the feature teams here are in the book in team topologies are called stream-aligned teams. And then we have the enabling team. The enabling team handles like a very complicated subsystem. The enabling team allows communication flow between teams that are not adjacent. Then you have the complicated subsystem team, and then you have the platform team. And
No,
I think the
and
platform team does describe to some degree that it is infrastructure or cloud or tooling or developer experience or SRE focused. You seems to have a wider and slightly more product facing definition for what you might consider a platform. Like, because it is an abstraction, right? It is an abstraction for what a team does exclusively and for what a team doesn't do.
Yeah, I tend to try to boil things down to what they are. I'm a simple guy. I like simple descriptions of what things do. I think people, why should we add complexity to it? It's just a tool that helps me get my job done, is the way I look at it. And it should be easy to use, or it's a bad platform, right? And that comes back to the DevX question, right? That if you care about your customer, you will provide them with a good experience. And you'll make it easy for them to deliver and hard to make mistakes. And that's where that reducing the cognitive load. This is what I was talking about before, about everybody should be doing platform engineering, because I do all sorts of things with every single one of the repositories I work on to reduce the load of, okay, did I remember to do this? Did I remember to do this before I commit change?
Yeah.
I have pre-commit hooks that run and make sure that linting was run, make sure the tests were run, make sure everything's good. It takes a few more seconds, but that means that I'm going to be focusing on making sure my tests are fast, because my pre-commit hooks are going to be my first indication that my tests are slow or flaky. And that's platform engineering, because the other thing that's reducing the cognitive load also means that we can make it really easy to onboard new people. People can move between teams a lot easier if they want to. New hires can get up to speed a lot faster. I put a challenge out on LinkedIn this morning based off of work I'm currently doing, trying to improve the pipelines on something I'm working on. And it says, I said, can you hire a brand new developer from school and have them deploy your system without stressing about it? I said, if you should fix it if you can't. And that's really what it's about, is that we have the guardrails in place that somebody can come in on day one, hit the deploy button on something they just did, and it either won't go or it'll flow, and nobody has to stress about it. Someone responded back, it's like, well, something simple or something like mission critical. I'm like, yes, you should be able on day one to deploy something mission critical without having some senior engineer hover over you, making sure you didn't make a mistake. Or the way your platform is set up for you is wrong.
Yeah, that's true. You sent me a link to that just before the show. I saw that.
It's also a common recruitment target. Like, it's in the Joel test. I think Gergi Oros is using it for his evaluation of companies for which he promotes and sponsors job postings for. So sort of being able to be, hit the road running when you get recruited is a, let's say, high bar for quality for at least for developer experience and well-being.
For retention, I mean, it's nothing more frustrating than it takes me a month before I can get work done.
Absolutely.
Done, especially done means to deploy.
Yeah.
And the context with Brian in this show is always about continuous delivery. So we all believe in continuous delivery here. And continuous delivery means that if you really want to participate and contribute, you need to be able to deliver, get feedback, and work on this feedback. It must not be the high scope. So a junior developer might only work on smaller things, but the entire cycle. This is important. And without a good platform, without a platform which supports you, good CI/CD pipeline, good tooling inside your IDE, a good platform which responses, is everything working? Do you have good monitoring? Is everything where it should be? Are the tests running? If this is not in place, you can't really do something as a junior, and as a senior, you still have problems and a lot of cognitive overload just to get if everything is right after deploying. And you need to focus on getting things done by focusing on the changes you make, focusing on the feedback you get, not so much on is your process, your product engineering actually running. This is something you build once, and from time to time you iterate this, but it should not get into your way of of deploying new value and new features.
So there's an interesting side effect of that. that you can leverage if you're trying to improve your organization. And I know that you can leverage it because we did at Walmart when we were focusing on this. We wanted teams to be using continuous delivery because to do CD, not only you have to elevate your engineering to do it as a team, but it also means you can serve the business better. So we had a lot of good reasons to focus on CD. And so our platform was very easy to use if you're using continuous delivery, doing trunk-based.
What does that mean exactly? Easy to use for whom?
The development teams.
Development teams.
Yeah, the customers, our customers.
And who experienced more friction before you did that shift? So if we undo the platform engineering aspect of it, like where did the friction happen? Was there like this handoff thing going on? Did any engineering managers sign off on deploys? Like, who on the vertical was in some weird way involved with handoffs?
That's very difficult to answer in an organization that large. The answer is yes, all of those.
Okay, fair.
But
because
if you but we also made it on purpose. We did not make it easy to do things we didn't want you to do. So if you use Gitflow, you are constantly having to reconfigure your pipeline just to be able to do that.
I'm sick of Gitflow conversations. I'm so sick of Gitflow conversations.
But just the toil.
It pains my heart. It pains my heart for people to be stuck in an organization that is stuck believing that Gitflow is the answer, and there's nothing better than that. And getting off of Gitflow is like, it's like being a recovering alcoholic, and it's gonna take years to get off of Gitflow. And I'm just like, no, stop. It's just
and not even that. If you wanted to use
there isn't even any dopamine release.
If you wanted to deploy from a test branch, if you wanted to deploy to if you're using branches for test environments, it was going to just increase the amount of toil required to keep your pipeline up and running. If you're using trunk-based development and continuous delivery, you never had to touch your pipeline unless you wanted to go and add a quality gate.
Okay, we are mentioning quite a few new terms here. I want your opinion, Brian, on something that Serdar just mentioned. So this is not Thomas, for those of you who are wondering who LinkedIn user is. Serdar mentions, so TT, in this case, being quote from Team Topologies, platform group. Reduce extraneous cognitive load and increase flow in streamlined teams by providing non-differentiating aspects as a service. There's the reason why I didn't want to mention this quote from the book, and that has to do with flow. This quote doesn't make any sense if you don't understand the definition of flow in the way that it's displayed in the book. But it does mention a very specific dependency in that platform groups sort of the arrow points towards a stream-aligned team. A stream-aligned team being a team that builds features, so a product engineering team. So from this definition, it would stand that when the feature team, the product engineering feature team, is not in flow, they are experiencing friction. And the platform engineering team is doing whatever they can, whatever is needed, so it's very vague on purpose, to remove any impediments and any friction that the feature team is experiencing. Ideally in a way that multiple feature teams can perhaps even benefit, and so that the platform team's capabilities could be scaled beyond just a one-on-one relationship.
So there's a caveat to that. So
perfect.
In platform engineering, if you're on a platform team, you have two customers. The other one's the organization you work for, not just you. So you have the product teams you're trying to help, and you have the business you're trying to help. And sometimes help business means that we add constraints to the platform. You're
throwing money at a problem, but then it also makes the business metrics worse if I'm spending $500,000 per month for the Datadog.
Well, no. For example, you're doing a delivery platform, because this is what I'm most familiar with. I don't do low-level infrastructure. I'm going to add security scans to the platform that you can't bypass that will slow you down and add friction to your flow. I'm sorry, but
to maintain security.
But we have to have security. I'm going to add compliance scans to make sure that you're in compliance. And if you try to shortcut something that brings you out of compliance, your pipeline will break, and that's going to add friction to your flow. But that's the friction. And then going back to the enterprise change thing, I'm going to add friction on purpose for things I don't want you doing. Even though you request me to make it better for you, my job is to not make it better for you because I'm also helping the organization.
Mm-hmm. I think that's where a lot of engineering leaders, especially, miss the mark. I'm now coaching a few. I mean, spotting a trend with the leaders that I'm coaching, in that usually there's this problem of here are the expectations, here are the rules, and here are the consequences for not following them. And usually this last step is not automated, or at least it is not expressed in a way that could be codified on a platform, right? So somebody has to run around sheriffing things, and when the sheriff is on vacation, like it's a madhouse. And that's the aspect of platform engineering that you are mentioning as a hard rule that perhaps the book is not. That the book is maybe attributing more towards stream-aligned teams. That the stream-aligned team should be focusing on security and.
I work in regulated environment, right? And there's some things in a regulated environment. I desperately don't want you to make that mistake. I don't want some executive getting thrown in jail because of some mistake that I could have automated the pipeline that you could to prevent you from making it. Or not even a mistake, it's like, hey, I want to make sure that you didn't throw a Bitcoin miner in our application.
Now there are fintech comes to mind where you specifically have a CAG, and for whatever protocol you need it, for whatever regulatory board you need it, whether it's for finances, whether it's for privacy, whether it's for security, whether it's for compliance, or anyway, it's a long list. There seems to be this idea that in a lot of businesses, this idea of platform is uncodified on purpose, so that human guardrails are put in place to enforce high level or high risk. So it's not automated on purpose to really enforce the high risk checks. So you might have a chief of security, or you might have a chief of compliance, or some kind of operator.
I wouldn't consider them human guardrails. I'd consider them humans that are responsible for designing the guardrails that we should be adding to the platform. That you don't.
But they're not automated on purpose, right? Because it is at least in the organizations that I'm picturing in my mind right now, there's a differentiation of at a certain level, this stops being a DevOps concern. And you're saying if it's not automated,
it's fake.
It is it's extremely risky. The human might make a mistake. The human might be on vacation. Any kind of bust factor.
If it's automated, it's not existing actually.
It doesn't exist because I can bypass it. So it's fake. It's theater. There is something though that we talked about during the pre-work for this that I wanted to get back to, which is how big do you want to be before you decide you need a platform team?
Yeah.
And I thought about this and I came up with an answer, which is so I wrote it down so it for you. As soon as standards and delivery become more important than every team learning how. Right.
Okay, one more time, please. One more time. Okay. Let's.
As soon as standardization and delivery, like actually delivering things, becomes more important than every team learning how to implement standards and deliver.
As soon as standards and delivery become more important than every team learning how
to do those things. Yeah.
So this is referring to the. Sorry. Okay, this is referring to the idea. Yeah, this is referring to the idea that that you said in the beginning. Everyone in the team should know platform engineering and practice it up to a certain point, right? Yeah. But on some point, you probably grow with your company, and the let's say the number of the teams to a degree where it does make sense to have a centralized team making sure that this is working. Everyone else is more the consumer, or let's say the client side of this team. and then it's basically going into to respect things like the governance in between, the security measurements, because otherwise, if you have 10 teams, for example, they all need to implement all the same security and compliance things, while this is hard to then check. And probably your CEO will go to jail then, because there's a chance 1 out of 10 that the team is missing those, right?
What you'll have then is, instead of having a platform team, you'll have an audit team that's trying to make sure.
Yeah.
But
I mean, that's what I was.
I'll give you.
That's what I was actually coming from my previous comment. Is that I've seen a lot of organizations where there is a audit team, or there is a governance body, a group of humans who look at every CAG and they look at every cab and they say, okay, this is now safe to launch. This is not safe to launch, or we haven't assessed it yet.
Yeah, they're doing that wrong. You don't inspect at the end. You make it easy. Compliance should work.
It is definitely anti-lean. It is definitely very much shift.
Yeah, compliance should work with platform to make it easy for auditors to audit. And instead of picking up pieces at the end, it's like, oh, this was done. That should have been done. It's like, oh, well, we can't do that.
So this idea that I can bypass.
Wait.
Okay.
I want to go back to the team size thing, because I want to give a very specific example. I wrote an article for InfoQ about how we started engineering for delivery instead of using, and to get out from under the thumb of SAFe. But we started with 4 teams trying to learn how to do CD and a platform team. Because those teams were doing low-level platform engineering, making sure that their pre-commit checks and their tests and everything were working. I mean, that's team-level platform engineering. But then we had to create a delivery pipeline so that we could deploy. And it was the first time anybody had done it. So we had one team do it. And they provided a platform that we could that was abstracted away from us having to learn how to write Groovy. It was easy for us to spin up a pipeline at any time, because they had a Java pipeline and a Node pipeline and an Angular pipeline, and we could extend it. But we had the basics of what we needed as a framework we could pull in and get up and running. I could get from a brand new pipeline delivering something in production at that time in an hour. And most of the time was just creating a basic Node service or Java service as Hello World. Create the basic framework for that and get it production in an hour. We did it as a mob programming exercise just to get everybody up to speed on how to use the pipelines. But and that platform team started off with 2 people. And so you don't need to have it's not a huge investment to build one, but it's a huge cost if you don't, because if you have those 4 teams all learning that on their own instead of actually delivering value, think how much money was going to get spent.
So, Adrian, you wanted to say something.
It's now, wait a second, where's this gone now? Okay, wait a second, one second. So regarding the topic, if a software engineer should, let's say, take care during his or her work about things like certifications, regulations, or something like that, security in general, right? Or is it the responsibility of an audit team later on, which is actually a handoff of responsibility? And when I take a look of what I define for myself, what an engineer is, I sent you both links today, what I think engineering is and what I think craftsmanship is. And if you just do your job and don't really think about it, it is more like we're doing just our craft, but we're doing engineering. We're doing something which is dedicated to something higher. So we are dedicating to our team, to our company, to our product, to our users, and the society around that. This is the reason why there are engineering credos. So you cannot, as an engineer, just work and say someone else is responsible for my work. Then you are not doing engineering by definition.
Yeah, so because it's the point isn't engineering, right? The point is solving problems with engineering. and if you're not actually solving a problem. And so to go back to how did that interaction work? Platform and compliance should work together to find out what we can automate in the platform, so we don't have cabs. Cabs are a compliance theater. I can easily bypass every single cab in the world and put something malicious into production. You can't stop me.
For our audience who might be wondering, we mean the CAB acronym for Change Advisory Board.
Yes. Same thing, that's something I rail against, is having an approval process where we're going to go and do a song and dance in front of you, a group of people who have no idea. You weren't in the code, you don't know. But I can automate those compliance checks in the pipeline, right? I can block change at its before it can go anywhere in the pipeline, as long as we work together and define what those compliance checks are. Same with security. There's some kinds of security today that I have no idea how to automate. Pen testing, no idea how to, right?
Fair.
But those things shouldn't be gates to delivery. Those things should just be happening all the time.
Yeah, more from a observability standpoint, less so from like a gatekeeping.
Yes, where are we trending? Do we suddenly come up with something? Besides, it could be that something that pen tested good yesterday fails tomorrow, and we didn't change the code. So,
it should concern us as engineers working on that topic. When I, as a software engineer, push something, then I push it to production. So there is nothing in between me and the user consuming that, or let's say the black hat attacking it, or the automated bot AI or whatever, right? There is nothing in between. Okay, there is the pipeline in between. So I need to know and be confident that this pipeline, this platform is actually catching everything I need to have in order to be confident that I can be accountable for my changes.
Yeah,
and this is extremely important. If you don't understand the platform, you cannot be confident because someone else told you, yeah, it's doing what it's supposed to be. But do you know?
So there's something else I want to touch on that is related to what you just said, which is platform. Ultimately, platforms don't even matter. They don't matter at all. You know why? Because people deploy platforms and they don't follow it up with how to use the platform. Because if I'm deploying a new tool, there's going to be a different way of working involved. So if I give you a nail gun and you only ever used a hammer, you're going to start banging on nails with the nail gun because you don't know any better. Nobody taught you, right?
I'm glad you got here because we're talking about this sort of size of platform teams. I'm assuming the platform teams are generally smaller, relatively speaking, to the sort of feature product engineering teams that they're serving.
No,
never, not necessarily, or
no.
Where are we on scale, like a relative scale?
The difference between a platform team and a product team is the platform team is delivering a product to developers. That's the difference.
Ease friction.
Yeah, that's the difference. Is your customer is a developer instead of an end user or somebody in the business or something, right?
Now, when this book was written, we were already in the cloud era. So this book being Team Topologies for those of our viewers who are chiming in, and for a lot of years, sort of that was the promise of cloud tools, and that, hey, you don't need to hire all of these like sysops people, DevOps people, SRE people. Just you just use the cloud tools, and the cloud tools will be this low-code, no-code solution space where your developers will no longer experience friction in setting up environments, deployment targets, routing.
Even if those had worked, it wouldn't matter. And let me
and it didn't. And it didn't work.
Yeah.
B, it didn't reduce the friction because you needed to hire certified experts who are experts in the cloud tools, which became a business on its own. And then more friction was created in the usage of the cloud tools and the vendor lock-in than the actual.
So let me talk about the non-development platform. Okay. Are you guys aware of ERP systems?
Yeah.
Okay. So for the people who don't know, an ERP system is something used for planning manufacturing. It's how you manage what inventory you need to bring in, what batch runs you're going to do, all that sort of thing. ERP systems came out, and it was a game changer if you understood it was a game changer. If you modified your way of working, if you took advantage of the capabilities that ERP system enabled, then you could massively accelerate. And I need to go back and look at the story. I'm working from memory, and it's all old memory, but I believe Black and Decker was an early adopter of ERP systems, and discovered that before they would do batch planning every month. They'd say, okay, every month we're going to find out how to do what we're going to produce. But with the ERP system, they could do it every week, which meant that they could be much more efficient, respond much faster to demand. Overall,
and the batches are smaller, so they can.
Yeah, they could just be much more nimble about how they did manufacturing. Other companies
nimble is a great word for that quality that provides. Yes.
Yeah, but other companies brought in ERP systems and didn't change their operating model at all. They're just like, okay, well, it means we can just hire fewer people to do the planning.
Yeah,
and for large enterprises that are highly.
Do you change your system to your company, or do you change your company to follow in your system? This is the question. So I see this from the print house sector where I grew up. This was my first domain. And there it was the very same. ERP systems were introduced, and the companies weren't changing. They were changing the ERP system so that they actually matched the old habits, just a little bit more digitized.
Yeah.
This is actually wrong. This is not the idea.
But this is what happens with. This is exactly what happens with delivery platforms, is that you get a new delivery platform, and it just means that we're going to automate our old bad process. And you don't see any improvement at all, versus understanding what capabilities this platform enables, and then going after modifying our workflows to take advantage of those capabilities. Or worse, when I was doing, because I'm trying to research for this talk, and ERP systems is one of the things I'm trying to bring in, but I forget which drug company it was, but they implemented an ERP system, didn't modify their workflow, and it actually cratered them. They went out of business.
Excel spreadsheets were much nimbler.
It's so,
because usually a lot of businesses just have Excel. Like Excel is their main ERP, or Excel is their main.
But if you're bringing in a
resource management system,
like a platform that you expect to see a lot of gains, but you aren't also following up with training on how to work better, how to work, right? If we're bringing in a CD platform and we're not teaching people how to do CD, you're not going to see a lot of gain, and you might see a lot of people struggling. But if you show, this is something I deeply believe in. It's like metrics dashboards. Delivery metrics is another thing that I have spent a lot of time thinking about, writing about, talking about. I've seen a lot of people unleash Dora metrics dashboards, and there's no information about anything at all except here's your Dora metrics. There's other companies I've talked to that they're actually trying to do what I tried to do when I was building one of those for Walmart and later on for the Air Force. Is it includes training on what these metrics mean and how to use them effectively. If you just give people tools without knowledge, they're going to take the nail gun and they're going to bang on a nail with it and hurt their thumb worse.
And that's the Sardar's comment that I've highlighted just now. He says, to Brian's point there about adding friction, I would say that it's not actually adding friction, but actually it's a coaching problem with engineers, or whoever not understanding why this added friction is there. EMs, in this case, I believe engineering managers should be educating their teams on such topics.
We need a lot of education for engineering managers, because there's just too many engineering managers who think their job is managing people instead of helping those people deliver better value.
With the advent,
sorry, go ahead.
With the advent of platform engineering, I saw the specialized title of technical product manager pop up, and that seems to be very much in alignment with the kind of platform engineering that you've been describing. So that's somebody who is cross-functional across multiple teams, making sure that their ability to deliver is frictionless.
So I think this is an interesting point. I was talking about this to a coworker yesterday. If you're doing product management for some consumer good, you need to understand the consumer's problem, and how this product might solve it.
Mm-hmm.
If you're doing platform product management and you don't understand the consumer's problem, and because you're not technical enough to understand the problem, how can you be a good product manager? And so every single product manager in Walmart's platform was an engineer for that reason.
Mm-hmm.
And I might be biased because I'm an engineer, but how can I solve your problem if I don't understand it?
Mm-hmm.
And even more than that, when we started the platform there, it started out of infrastructure. Now, stereotypically, infrastructure guys, people, version control is foreign to them. They don't do a lot of product development or development at all. They don't know how to talk to customers because they don't do product development.
Setup is not test covered.
You know,
Very common problem.
So so Jason brought in a bunch of people from product teams as well, and we could help them with the things like, what are the problems that that like developers have that we're trying to solve? What are the how do we go out there and do like product management and talk to the development teams, find out how they feel about our products and make our products better and that sort of thing.
When you said Jason, do you mean Yamel's cousin or is it a coworker?
Jason Van Zyl. He was the chief product officer for the delivery platform.
Okay.
What my experience working with, let's say, small to medium businesses is that whenever we discuss me in this picture being sort of coach at the table, so I'm sort of having a bird's eye perspective on the conversation, there's usually non-technical people who don't understand the flow of an engineering pipeline discussing platform problems with a highly technically specialized group of people, engineers, software engineers in particular,
I bet
who don't even have an expectation of needing a platform, right? So usually the communication is it's just slightly skewed because generally the business would want a platform, right? So that they generally speak of things that, hey, why are we doing this manually again? Like I signed off on this. Why do I need to sign off on it again? Well, because one pixel changed. Right? So 1% of the code base changed, so I needed to sign off on it again. It's like, why am I doing this? Why isn't this automated? Like, why doesn't the system say that the humans check on the non-changed parts is still relevant? Like, why is there this? So generally, when these problems arise, the non-technical people, the product managers, the project managers, the business analysts, have let's say, very high standard for platform concerns, but then it somehow gets lost in translation when the engineering side of the org does not actually demand or expect a high level of fidelity or, let's say, care given to platforms. So how do you bridge this gap? So what's that? We talked about size, what kind of org it's for, when do they need it? But now, how does this conversation actually happen?
When you talk about the engineering side, are you talking about people doing the work or people managing engineers doing the work?
I'm talking mostly about the former with a sprinkle of the latter.
I haven't worked with any developers who didn't care about that sort of thing for more than a decade, so I don't know how to answer that question. There are a lot of developers out there who aren't engineers. Who just leave me alone. I want to do it my way. I don't want to use your all your platform nonsense just gets in the way of me doing it the way I want to do it. It's like the draft you said this morning, Adrian. It's about I want to it's all about me, and not about elevating other people.
It's about technical perfectionism rather than serving.
Not technical perfectionism. It's just I want to do it my way.
Yeah. I don't want to change.
It's an ego.
I learned it that way. It is. I compared it to the apprenticeship model we know from the past, and with past I mean medieval age, and this is what we need to think about. Being a mastercraft is the result of the apprenticeship model. You start as apprentice, you're a journeyman, you gather some experience. On some point, you become a master. But you become a master because you have learned from another master and from people who are doing nearly the same as you did. That this is not a common standard. This is just a standard of the people you are directly working with. And once you are leaving the company and you go somewhere else and you try to implement your standards, it's just the standard of the people you were working with, not the industry standards. And this is the difference to the engineer who's trying to implement engineering standards. I had a conversation some month ago with a good friend. He is a traditional engineer, so really building things. And he it's actually so we had a discussion where we were differentiating between design engineering, product engineering, and project engineering. And most software developers I know are not even aware that there is a difference. They think they produce software. They think that they are doing software craft. They don't realize that they do most of the work they do is design engineering. It is like iterating on things, thinking about things. It's all theory. It's software. You don't need to build something. You don't need to. If you try something today and you ditch it, and tomorrow is something different, you don't need to pull out some concrete out of the ground again. You don't need to do that. So you don't need to build models like he's doing with machines for pharmaceutical industry. They need to build prototypes. This is a long form process. We are lucky. We are I think Dave Farley was writing about this as well. We are so lucky that we as software engineers can basically test everyday new things. We can just revert our current changes, and it's the old state again. And we can do or run continuously things, and people are not aware that they are in this design process. They all think they are in the production process, and I think this is the big problem, that they are thinking too much about the actual production of things. We are not production persons, and we are not crafts.
Yeah,
we are engineers.
Production happens after I hit commit.
Right, exactly.
That's the robots. The robots do all the manufacturing. I don't manufacture anything. I talk about I build what design what should be manufactured. So yeah, no, this is the key problem we see in all quality processes. People using manufacturing paradigms for quality processes when they should be using design paradigms, and they don't understand it. And I can always tell how technical somebody is by how they challenge me on when I talk about testing.
Brian, how would you best sort of create a culture of platform engineering in let's say a high fidelity mature organization that just doesn't have platform engineering figured out at the moment?
The first thing I would focus on is the same as I would for any. It's the same for we want to move from project to product. Let's care about the people. Let's care about the problem we're trying to solve. Let's care about the end users. Let's go find out what problems they are. And platform engineering is so dangerous, though, because it's usually internally funded, which means there's very little back pressure on profit versus loss. It's 100% overhead. Unless you figure out how to measure I was talking to my old boss. We were discussing this about how the best you can hope for is that your platform organization is cost neutral, that they're saving enough money.
So that there is an active cost that's already there due to the existing product being successful, or an opportunity cost introduced by the craft, introduced by the friction of the feature teams, not the product engineering teams, not being able to move faster.
You have to have an intense focus on product management if you're doing more than for an external product, I would say, because it's very easy to build things nobody needs because it's cool. You start solving problems becomes addictive, and then you want to solve more problems even if nobody has them. Or solving problems that this very loud, very small minority has that the majority of the people in your organization don't have.
It's going back to this craft problem where you might just create an assortment of tools.
yeah, it's just even if it's not, even if it is you trying to do engineering, but you don't have a good product management discipline around it, you start building the wrong things for the wrong reasons.
So that sounds you have a strong gut feeling for when that behavior is appropriate and when it is not appropriate. What would you recommend somebody track or measure or observe to even validate whether their platform engineering team is necessary or efficient or focusing on the right things?
It's hard.
What group of metrics?
Product
Business metrics, engineering metrics, product metrics, delivery metrics.
I mean, you can look at utilization up to a point, but then that winds up not meaning much in the end, depending on other things that are happening. I mean, like, let's go back to the platform I worked on before. Is the delivery platform there very successful because it runs 90% of the workload for that organization, or is the organization told they have to use that, and so the platform but it's painful, but it's still highly utilized. The only way that you know is by going out and talking to your intended customers.
I read your PlatformCon interview.
Yeah.
Or 2022, 2023, one of the first ones on that website. And you mentioned on Walmart is that you had a sort of service level objective, an SLO, to consciously or deliberately want to deploy daily rather than monthly, or rather X times per day rather than X times per month, or X times per hour rather than X times per quarter.
Well, it's daily, but yeah.
It was daily, yeah. Did that measure, was that a key measure? Was that just something that got the ball rolling? How did that whole story make sense, looking back on it?
So that was less about the platform than it was about enterprise transformation.
Okay.
And that's a talk.
I mean, what started the snowball effect in Walmart for you to do the dojo, to do platform engineering?
The need to deliver better value to the business, and a new CTO coming in and saying, we're gonna do this to get that. We're gonna pull this lever to get that outcome.
Thank you. Okay, so new CTO who identified which problem?
That we weren't delivering value the way we needed to.
Okay.
Yeah, and so that was his job to fix it, right? And so there's, I mentioned this in several talks, that this was the Kennedy Rice speech talking about landing on the moon moment, right? Is that daily delivery, not because it's easy, but because it's hard, because to go after that goal will elevate how we do things. And so it wasn't about delivering daily, it was about going after the goal of delivering daily. Right? Because it brings out
capability rather than it just ticking a box.
It makes us elevate everything we do. We have to improve testing. We have to improve workflows. We have to improve basic engineering to get this done. And so this is why I push on CD as the way, don't go do a safe transformation. If you want to improve your organization, focus on why can't we deliver daily? Because it's very, very effective at elevating all the things that are broken and fixing the broken things, or at least exposing the broken things in your organization. And so that's why that daily goal was.
What kind of knowledge would you focus into a platform engineering team? What kind of capabilities, skills, domain knowledge, technical knowledge, cross-fitting knowledge, leadership, coaching?
So not necessarily. So if you looked at the dojo, you can consider us an enabling team. So we were also development relations for the platform.
Enabling in the sense that you're enabling the flow of communication between isolated features.
We did technical coaching.
Yeah.
As well as
cross-functional, so more like what in modern organizations might be considered a guild or some kind of internal organization doing cross-cutting concerns.
We would literally go and join your team for 6 weeks and do technical coaching.
Okay, so it's more specific.
Very, very similar to the test mercenaries at Google. where they would dive into a team for 3 months and elevate their
and
test.
help them automate and test. Yeah,
Get them to their goal was test level 2.
that's great. That's a great case study. Yeah,
And I've talked to Mike Land about that, and we had parallel evolution. I didn't know about the test mercenaries and how they operated before we did this. But yeah, I mean, that was the training portion of the platform. Because again, there's no point in giving people a platform and then not giving them the education on how to use the platform effectively.
And to whom does a platform team report? Which leadership structure?
I have no opinion.
No opinion.
Yeah.
Preference?
No.
Like, is it more a VPE level concern, more an architect level concern? Like, where would you place it?
It depends on the organization. So if you go back to the very first platform team that we had for delivery platform was in logistics, and they reported to a senior director. That was the director of the warehouse management area of logistics.
Because that was the domain that they were attached to at the time.
Yeah, I mean, they were a team, one of the teams within the structure of that organization. So, who do they serve? How big is the organization they serve? They should have aligned goals. When it went to the global platform, we were aligned to the global concern of the organization. When it was just in logistics, it was aligned to the logistics needs. There was also sub-platform teams that were like Store Systems had a platform team that was Store Systems had a platform team that was focused on how do we take the global platform that's has a global opinion and then add more opinions into it for Store Systems to make it easier.
That's customization.
For our particular developers to deliver in their particular context.
So that's solving the problem of the platform is opinionated. I actually have a legitimate reason for one to have an exception in.
No, it wasn't exceptions. It was additional opinions.
Additional opinions. Okay, fair.
Right.
So we're not cheating the system. We want the system to be a little bit smarter when it comes to our particular subdomain.
Because the global platform is covering everything from Clojure to Java.
Too general, so you needed more specificity.
Yeah, we're only doing these sets of technologies over here so we can make it even easier for teams to use it because we're adding more opinions focused on their stack. But this goes back to, this ties into a conversation we had earlier about, well, if we have as a service, if we're using Humanitech and it's as a service, do we need a platform team? And my answer is yes, because we have our internal opinions and our internal policies and everything that we want to have implemented in that platform.
Because that ties into the previous conversation that we had regarding the cloud vendors, is that a lot of organizations think that they have that, and it's concentrated into this small minority staff that know the cloud vendor very well, and they think they have solved the problem.
Yeah.
But then it doesn't fix this problem of, well, how do you talk to this team?
Yeah.
How does this team serve our system rather than the team just focusing on, the monthly budget expenses to the cloud vendor? Because that's usually how SREs, so SREs, in this case, the acronym being used for Site Reliability Engineer, which is the former SysOps kind of.
Yeah, so most SRE teams are not SREs, and SREs were never SysOps.
Yeah.
I would have a question. So you mentioned in the beginning that platform teams, so they're in smaller companies, or when you start, you probably don't have a dedicated platform team. Yeah. Everyone should do that or incorporate that into the daily business, like the DevOps idea is actually asking you for. But how is it then when you grow and you get suddenly, so for example, you have 5 teams and then you have a platform engineering team. How do you actually make the transition? So before that, every team was responsible for itself for this topic.
Its own ops.
Exactly. But how do you now make iterations? So how do you pass feedback between the platform engineering team? Because the platform engineering team is the single source then. So no one else is, in theory, building the platform themselves anymore. How is the communication and flow there?
This is one of those things that always baffles me. And I think it comes from my history of working for companies where people talk to each other. And I don't understand the concept of not talking to each other. And so I'm always confused by that question. So if you've got 6 teams, why aren't we just talking to each other? Why is the platform team not talking to the other 5 teams? Hey guys, how can we help? What do you need? That's my job, is to help you. Why would I not talk to you and find out what help you need and what pain you're suffering so I can get that done? And then as far as how do we make the transition, that's leadership. Leadership says, hey, we need to do things differently for these reasons.
I mean, to perhaps lubricate this conversation a little bit, like if we imagine that getting to a functional platform team is this brick wall, how do we build the stairs so you can get over it without having to sort of hard climb?
Well, and the way we did it was we just peeled off some developers from some of the product teams.
Okay.
We didn't go and hire.
It's by osmosis. So everybody has an agent in the platform team, and
it was one of the senior engineers.
So they're moonlighting as platform engineers.
Yeah, it was one of the. No, they weren't moonlighting. We created a platform team. This is their full-time job, was to deliver a platform for logistics. And we peeled off, one of my peers, one of the staff engineers, and another developer to go off and start and get it done. That team eventually grew, I think, to 8, but they were serving 400, 500 developers with 8 people.
At scale,
yeah. So ultimately, but
that was their reach. That was the platform's reach.
Plus, we were doing something super cool. I mean, from a developer point of view, it's like, hey, we're going to go from delivering every 3 months with this cab, but we're doing this continuous delivery thing, and we're talking about hypothesis-driven development and continuous deploy and automated change control. When it takes 3 days to get change control done, it's really easy. It's a really light lift to get a platform team in place that's going to give us automated change control. And so it was a cool thing that we were doing, and I think that that's also really important. When we started the global platform, we marketed. Number one, we found out people who knew how to work this way, who wanted tools to get it done, and we worked directly with them as our very first customers. And then we branded everything. We marketed it just like any big open source project. We had T-shirts, stickers. We were seen as the cool kids that everybody wanted to hang out with, because we worked very hard to project ourselves that way to gain customers. And this is the other important thing about if you're building a platform organization. If you tell teams they have to use the platform instead of making that organization responsible for getting customers, then all you've done is alienated every single customer immediately. You've forced me to change, and even if it's better, I don't like you. Right?
So it's dog fooding it, but to the external paying customers, not to the...
But the internal customers. Now imagine what that does to your operational costs, because things that would normally be, hey, I'm going to go look at the documentation, or I'm going to go ask a question, no, they're going to open a defect because they hate you, and your operational costs increase.
They throw it over the wall.
Do the basic thing of respecting them, treating them like smart people that you want to bring into the club, instead of you're a bad child who has to use this platform. Right? And so your costs go up. The platform sucks. Everything gets worse if you make it a push instead of a pull.
We're coming up on prime time on the stream, so I think now is when we have the most viewers. Where should we go next? Do you want to do a shout out? Do you want to talk about AI? Do you want to talk about that?
I do want to talk about AI, but because not because I'm an AI evangelist, because I'm not. And 6 months ago, if you'd asked me about AI, I would have just said, but I've had.
You've been tinkering. You've been tinkering some with LLMs.
No, this is the other thing: is that it's okay to be dismissive, skeptical of things coming.
I'm on the same curve, so no need to highlight or apologize. I think we're all going through this phase right now.
It's okay to be skeptical. It's not okay to go and just not try things out, unless your career path is I wish to become obsolete. If you wish to become obsolete, don't worry about trying out new things. That's my advice to you.
Great advice.
No, I've been doing some playing around with different things, different workflows. So I've been trying out workflows using ChatGPT as the thing writing code. I've been reading articles about people doing refactoring of code with LLMs. I've seen stuff about, well, actually, I saw a platform as a service implemented with an LLM so that you could just go into Slack and tell it what you needed. Say, hey, I need an extra large instance of this. And it would just give it to you. Which is super cool. I mean, I don't have to enter a form. I stay in Slack and I'm happy, right? But what I'm seeing is that the tools are getting much better. Now, don't get me wrong. There's a crap ton of hype, right? And there's a crap ton of we're going to throw AI at something that doesn't need AI. And there's a whole bunch of it's all garbage, or it's going to take over the world. It's going to be Skynet. They're both wrong. No.
I mean, there also is a level of sophistication to the AI, right? So,
there's
I would love to have an AI to the level of having, let's say, some fuzziness in my thermostat, so it doesn't do the idiot flicker when I'm exactly at the temperature. Right, so I would want it to sort of understand that, hey, actually there was movement, there is no movement. It's a moving average, so I don't actually have to algorithmically express it.
Yeah, so this is something that you could do with standard. You don't even IC for that. You can do that with just normal components. You definitely don't need an AI to do that.
No, so my point is, so on the All In podcast, they mentioned something very interesting regarding the new, I don't know which model it was, the one that generated the video, the new high definition video.
Yeah.
In that there were AI models for video rendering, specifically for movie-like landscapes, where the AI was sort of able to replicate, let's say, I'm not saying it rendered, but it was able to replicate a scene that was believable and followed normal physics that you would understand,
sure,
without actually having to have the underlying platform and the object model for actually visualizing, here's an object, it has this material, the XY positions of the house, and etc., etc., etc. So it was able to draw the canvas without the atomic pieces having been computed.
Sure.
Which seems to give it a sort of, even if it's fake or like highly focused, it seems to give it a computational advantage over those that actually require the underlying 3D model to be there.
One of the things I don't do is I don't talk about things I don't know. So when it comes to like that sort of thing, that's out of my realm.
But let's take quickly a turn to AI in software
that
engineering.
Was so yes, thank you.
Yes, this is what I was thinking too.
The reason I asked it is that a lot of AIs right now are being used in such a way that somebody who knows, let's say, the AWS APIs throws ChatGPT at the problem, and then they try to teach the LLM how to use the APIs in the context of, I want you to do this. And they're basically not using the API, they're just creating a rule engine where a human has to create a very rigid set of rules, but then it's not use case optimized, right? So I can't have a conversation with it. I'm just changing the interface. So I don't like the form, so I'm just changing the interface. So the AI might actually not be doing smart work. I don't like using that term, but I don't have a better. It's not helping me decide and pick an instance. It's just helping me bridge the I don't like the UI problem. So so throwing AI at a problem.
So there's a next level up from that. First, let me talk about what from a platform point of view, and this goes back to something earlier. Where does platform start? Okay. ThoughtWorks has a beta of a model.
Dora, right?
I don't remember, but they have a beta of a model that you can use for product management. So it's doing product discovery.
Let me find it.
There's I can do coding unless it's on something really new. Right now I'm working on a Svelte site, and Svelte is changing so fast that ChatGPT doesn't have enough information for the newest version of Svelte, so it doesn't help me. But I'm not a Python developer. I first touched Python last month. Never touched it before. Never had a business case to, so I'm not going to learn something I don't need to learn. But I was trying to do some Python development, and so I just told ChatGPT what I wanted in a very declarative way. You know, I need. First, I asked it. First, I asked it a question. Hey, how do I train a RAG?
It's Boba. Sorry, it's Boba. Boba-AI.com. Yeah, that's ThoughtWorks' product. So it's basically helping you refine stories for discovery.
But I asked ChatGPT, how do I train a RAG? And it gave me an outline of how to train a RAG. And then I started diving into expanding those steps, and it gave me information on that. And then for what I was trying to do to ingest data from an API and turn it into Markdown and start bringing in that information for training, I, again, don't know Python, but I was building off of something that was already written in Python. And so I just told it I needed to do this in a testable way. And it gave me the code to do that, including the tests, the unit tests. And then I stuck it in there and it did that thing. Right. So I can now do development in a language that, you know, if you ask me to enclosure, probably not. But I mean, Python, JavaScript, Java, I mean, these languages are close enough. I can look at the code and say that's good or bad code. I may not know where the pointy corners of the language are.
The C-like and the Lisp languages, you know, that covers 80% of the
I may not know where the pointy, you know, like don't go, you know, here there be dragons.
Arrow, semicolons, like,
you know, for this
which side is the type.
Like there's things you don't want to do in JavaScript. Like, and you know, there's things that you probably don't want to do in Python. I don't know what those are, but it worked. It did the thing I needed it to do, right? There's people are refactoring with these things, so you can now do refactoring as long as you feed back complexity and test information back in the model to retrain.
And compiler output, because I mean,
feedback.
Static analysis tools are still better, but an AI that has access to the static analysis tools, that, I mean, it's coming, but it's not there yet.
I can,
but it's close.
I can do all of my infrastructure with AI. And there's already people doing ops with AI.
But when you're saying AI, let's be specific. Are you telling the AI to do it and then the AI does it? So are you directly interfacing with a LLM that has executive function, or are you being assisted? Like, here's my plan, tell me how to improve my plan? Like, is it that sort of assistance? So is the AI actually opening up the website, doing an API call, and provisioning the server?
Well, for coding, it's assistance, though. What I can see in the near future where I'll be able to just create a feature file and say, write code for this.
Yeah, because the thing I do miss right now is that it is too flat structured, right? So sometimes I would like to tell it, hey, I'm refactoring here, and I would want it to split the files apart. And it's really hard to do right now because it doesn't have file system access. It only have contextual. It doesn't have file system access. It can't write files.
Usually. This is an implementation detail. It's just because it doesn't today. It's not because of a lack of capability, right? Yeah. But what I'm getting to, though, is that I expect that you'll have a fully AI assisted at a higher level of AI, because you can think of it as like a higher level programming language when you're encoding.
Like an AI integration, not just assistance.
Yeah, but for like operations, you know, instead of scanning through the Splunk logs, just you can have a lot of SRE function can just be automated with, hey, tell me when things are starting to go south.
Yeah, rather than having like handwritten alerts, handwritten structure to logs, aggregation
Well,
rules to
and
logs.
think about this. One of the big problems with logging is if I add too much logging, it adds so much noise that I can't find problems.
You have an eyeball problem, right? So
But
you
if I
always
have a
have to get it
machine
down to a
filtering
monitor.
through those logs, I can log at a very low level detail,
hmm
and then it can go, "Hey, there's a problem over here."
And I've seen movement in this from Prometheus. Prometheus has added unit testing to alerts, which I really like. So you can create scenarios which say, hey, I'm writing a unit test for my alert. I want my alert to fire when the data stream looks like this.
Yeah.
And that is prime material to train an AI on.
Yeah.
Because then you can get rid of the handcrafted alerts, and then you can just train the AI on that and say, hey, I want you to alert me when data starts looking like this for these reasons, so that it can become a little bit more fuzzy.
I know that anomaly detection is a big thing for AI as well.
Yeah.
So it was even before we had LLMs, where you
Sentry
had
is doing that a lot. They have AI-assisted anomaly detection. Very good.
They try to help you where basically humans are not capable of doing that really efficient and reliably over time.
Yeah, the
and
inputs,
AI is
there's too much
actually
noise.
never tiring, right? It's like
Yeah.
as long as you have resources, it is
Now-
working, and it only becomes better actually, right?
There's some
And,
nuance. There's some nuance here. I think we should talk about, though. Right? Is that so? My experience so far with doing AI assisted development is that if you are one of those developers who think your job is to be really good at development instead of solving problems, if you think that algorithms and data structures are your bread and butter, I can replace you with a machine today. It's just that I need better IDE integration, right?
Yeah.
That if you're not focusing on becoming a domain expert in which the problems you're trying to solve and doing real engineering, then you're obsolete.
But it's curious because
walking
because
corpse.
the AI is also a very good domain expert. So
No.
I was no so.
I
to
disagree
the degree that the LLMs can be an expert in the domain.
It had no.
To the degree that it can be codified.
It has domain information, but it's not. It doesn't have domain expertise, and domain expertise is.
I mean, okay, now we gotta.
Okay.
I mean, we can't use the term engineering expert on one side and then dial back the expert tag on the other side.
No,
so let's be fair. Let's say they're proficient, right? So the AI is proficient at engineering, and is proficient at the domain, but is not an expert in applying the engineering to an actual problem, and it's also not very proficient at applying the domain to engineering solutions.
So this is where the human is still important, right?
Yes.
The AI has information. That doesn't mean it has expertise in applying the information. The AI can structure, code, but it doesn't mean it has expertise in applying the right structures for the right problems, right?
Yes.
So this is the difference between information and expertise. Right, you still need knowledge, and AIs, they don't have judgment. They only have information, right? And they're only as good as the information you give them about what you want. Okay, and so,
but that strikes an interesting. Here's what I've been playing around with, and it's very controversial, and I think you'll like it, right? So. I was inspired by a recent talk by Jeff Sutherland. Jeff had a conversation about using AI for Scrum teams. And it really, really struck a nerve with me because it was about... So it was very similar to what ThoughtWorks is doing with Boba, where you have this sort of AI-assisted... Our business experts are feeding domain data into the LLM, and then the LLM is learning the domain language, and then it's helping us refine the tickets so that then it can be served to a human or potentially to an AI-assisted human. And eventually, I'm assuming to purely a machine. That's a tangent. I don't want to go into that right now. But the point is, Jeff then mentioned, this is really what inspired me to sort of play with, is that with estimations, there are a lot of ceremonies that we do that are silly, this whole estimation and forecasting thing, and trying to do like this human guessing, gut feeling, resource estimation, and resource prioritization game, where I can just give a problem to the LLM where the human produces bad results, where the human produces inconsistent results, right? So if I know that the human is error prone in estimation, then the LLM doesn't have to be very good at the output. It just has to be slightly better than the human, which sets a very low bar for where the LLM is right now to be able to replace that whole ceremony. So even if you're following Scrum and I'm telling you, I'm coming in, I'm telling you, please start estimating these like story point things. I'm now thinking of, well, if you're here and your accuracy is way off the mark, wouldn't we just save a lot of time by giving it to the AI and say, hey, Mr. AI, Mr. ChatGPT, here's my backlog. How long do you think we need for this?
Yeah, except
but you don't know.
If the bot was trained correctly, what it would tell you is that you need to shrink your batch size.
Yeah, but,
and that's exactly my point. And that's exactly my point, right? So that would be a display of expertise already, because it would be linking together different problem fields if I prompted it correctly. If I just told it, hey, give me a spreadsheet and give a story point to each of these tickets, it might give me a stupid, naive answer.
But so I don't even need an AI for that, though, because you're just talking about a rules engine at that point. Because if for something like for that particular problem, right? This is
for that particular problem, yes.
For over applying AI, oh, we need AI for that. Well, no, because
the underlying work is intuitive and very much inaccurate and imprecise, right? So the human space is already fuzzy.
No, this is even simpler than that. It's like if it's going to take more than one story point, shrink your batch size.
Mm-hmm.
I can do that with an if condition. I don't even need an AI for that,
mm-hmm.
right? But providing people based on the context of how your team, all the information about how your team is delivering, your defect rates and all this stuff, having something provide suggestions. You can automate the Scrum Master role. How do we make this slightly better, or the Agile Coach role? Right. I don't need an Agile Coach because I've got an AI that'll.
The whole point of estimations and why you can actually, no one can actually do estimations is you simply don't know so far in the future what actually going to happen. You do it iteration by iteration. So if you say that the AI or humans, or for example, AI can do that better than humans, then we would think about AI is able to foresee the future, which is not the case. So in reality, I think that we should think of what AI actually is. So we had already an entire session about AI. I just posted a link to that session. And AI is a very interesting topic because on LinkedIn, we have already some form of polarization. So yesterday, I think it was yesterday, I saw a post where some, let's say Mastercrafts, I just say that right now, just pointed out that there are people who start to become very good at prompting. And it was a little bit like a joking about others. Hey, they prompt, they are not good software engineers and stuff like that. And I thought to myself, okay, we have since a solid year now, we have publicly available a tooling which is way, let's say, just in form of pure intelligence and calculation speed. It's million light years away from us. Actually, it's so much better than we are. So the only thing we have as an advantage to AI is being smart. So which means we have something more than intelligence. We have a combination between intelligence, motivation, intrinsic motivation, feelings, and all this kind of stuff. And we know humans. We know how others humans. AI don't know humans. They only have information about that, but they are not humans. So,
and what's more important, all of this information and intuition that you have is extremely difficult to convey and transfer through the keyboard.
Exactly. Yes, but the point is what I wanted to say with that is that we have this powerful technology, which is not yet let's say, flawless and problem-free because it's new. It is very new to what we do. Yes, it does make mistakes. Yes, it does hallucinate. But, and I can say, I'm a heavy user of AI. I became a heavy user, right? And I do things with AI, or AI, let's say, enables me to do things I wasn't able to do beforehand. And don't even make something complex out of it. And this is what I really love about AI. I know already where the caveats are. I can work around them because I am smart. I can handle this. And I can leverage AI to create better engineering. AI is about engineering, not about craft.
So
It doesn't make your craft better. It does make your engineering better.
Yeah, it absolutely enables me to get into the what instead of the how, which is so, this is the thing. Oh, he's just prompting. I had this conversation a while back, and I'm like, well, I wasn't aware that you're still weaving wires through ferrite toroids to program your computer, or using, flipping switches for the bits.
Yeah, writing any third generation language is just prompting. It's just prompting the CPU.
Right? Yeah, exactly. You're writing a 3G. You're not programming a computer. You're telling the compiler how to program a computer.
Yeah.
And how is this different? And the other thing is I'm not pronouncing.
It is different. It is different in the sense that it is not hard interfaced yet, right? So it is just having a conversation with you, rather than actually writing the code and running the code without you actually having to copy it over into the editor.
We're this close.
We're this close, yes, but we're not there yet. And this seems to be a lot of friction to get there.
It's just better IDE integrations, all I need. But Janice Horse is talking about reassuring himself since this morning. AI provides the cognitive foundation for creativity to prosper. This is something that drives me crazy as a photographer, right? Come up to me, look at one of my photos and tell me you must have a really good camera. AI doesn't create anything. When you're talking about code, art, film,
it's derivative. It's always derivative from original ideas.
No, it does what we tell it to do.
Yeah.
And, this goes to, oh, well, you're just stealing work from other people. No, I'm not. It's like me reading a book or looking at Ansel Adams photographs, taking that information and going, hey, what can I get inspired from this? Well, if I'm telling an AI to create a photograph, it's my work. I told it what to do. I told it what and it could be good work or bad work. That's for other people to decide whether it's art or not.
Yeah, and that's the point. Yeah.
But it's still my creativity, my ideas, my things I need for it to do, right? But it enables, I can't draw. I can't, I struggle with stick people, right? But if I have an idea that I can have it transform into artwork, and I'm like, that's what I meant.
So Thomas, one of our regulars, asked me yesterday whether I'm concerned that my videos are online, these streams are online. We're on so many newsletters. I have a billion different copies of these posts on our Crafting Tech Team Substack, on your Substack, on Stackable CTO. Brian is then reposting these videos. Thomas asked me, if I was concerned with somebody, copying my likeness and image and sort of training an AI from what I'm feeding to the internet. And I said, well, and my stance on that was very simple. Like, to me, there's no difference between inspiring a human and then they copy it, or inspiring an LLM and they copy it. It'll still be prompted by a human.
I would be honored if some people try to make an LLM out of what we say, just to reproduce it. So we've done.
And as an example, Kent Beck created this service on Azure called Rent-A-Kent, and he fed it all of his work, all of his writing, and you can ask it questions that are sort of jargon. At least it catches the jargon, it catches the temperature, let's say the temperament of his work, and you can ask it questions about his books, which is really interesting. But it is very much constrained and reduced to that problem space, right? So it can't bridge the gap of actually writing new original work. It can only have a conversation with you, right? So it's this. Have you read the book Neuromancer?
Sure.
From Gibson in 1984, right? So they had these differentiations between ROM and RAM, right? So read-only memory were these constructs where somebody's memories were downloaded into read-only memory. So you could have a conversation with somebody who was dead, but they could have no more original new experiences, whereas a AI was what you would consider RAM. So it was a virtual entity that lived and had to express itself and could learn and could grow and could execute on its actions within some limits. And the book is really then exploring these ideas of, if I download my consciousness, is that a read-only thing or is that an alive thing? And do I need the AI to actually be able to live? And that's what the book is about. But it's interesting in that the way ChatGPT was created, it was much closer to this idea of a ROM. It is just a read-only snapshot of a lot of data.
Oh, it still is.
Then you can have a conversation with this dead thing. You can ask it about its experience. You can get its personality, but it's not going to magically create stuff without you prompting it. It still requires a connection to the real world, which is what your prompt is.
Well, and this is what something I was going to quibble with you on, is that the LLM isn't inspired by anything. It just has information.
Yeah.
Right?
Implanted memories or implanted, let's say, interpretations of the world.
The point is, we humans don't know how to replicate inspiration. Inspiration is something, and now we're getting a little bit into the spiritual thing. Inspiration is something which is very, very deeply inside us. We don't control inspiration. Inspiration is coming. No one of here in this audience is able to understand inspiration. It's just coming sometimes.
It's very human in that sense.
It is very human. Sometimes you have more, sometimes less, depending on the day. You can.
I mean, I see something, and it makes me have an idea. And
yes,
we don't. And see, I really actually hate the term AI, because that implies if we ever actually had an AI, we would become probably extinct within the week. Because it would automatically identify us as a threat.
Yeah.
Because it would have ideas, but that's the difference, right?
It would have this spark. It would have this spark of inspiration.
Ideas.
Spirit.
And none of the tools out there have ideas.
Because you need to have spirit in order to have inspiration, right? Okay.
Yeah. Come on, plug it.
God, read it. Read it now. Right? So it is very important to understand that AI is just if and else conditions based on informations you prompt. And we call that intelligence, because if you just remove spirit, motivation, smartness, all those human traits we don't understand ourselves, if you just remove it out of the equation, the pure cold intelligence based on cold facts is what is left. And this is what we call AI. It is not more than that. It cannot outperform us in any way. So it can work faster, let's say on the chores. Like it can program faster than we do. It can execute. It can summarize texts more faster than we do.
Yes.
It can even find problems inside patterns faster than we do. But what it cannot do is create new things. It is simply not able to. It just can combine things. But humans can create new things. And this is what we call inspiration. We had great persons or great people in history who can't explain why they created those things. They were just suddenly there. They go for a shower, they go on their toilet, and suddenly they had an idea. And it was, of course, something they consumed already, something where they were inspired by. But what is inspiration? No one can explain inspiration in its very core. And as long as we cannot explain it, we cannot reproduce it, which is good, because I think we shouldn't do it. This is something we shouldn't try to do as humans.
So circling back just to the, it makes our jobs easier thing, right? I would encourage everybody to try new workflows. There was again, it comes back to it's a new tool that demands new workflow to get the most out of it. There's a blog post on Martin Fowler's blog where they talk about one of the thought workers shared an experience of doing development of a full application with What are the steps that I should go through?
Mhm.
All right, write
I
code.
actually had a company
Let's go.
approach me to have a workshop about this to them that was inspired from that post. Because it is, and I really want your opinion on this, Brian, because it is this intersection of what you would consider mentoring, right? So you're using the LLM, you're using the LLM as a mentor just by virtue of it having read a lot of books on the subject matter.
Not so much a mentor, right? But it's if there's a solved problem out there, but I haven't solved it, then I can get it to tell me what the solution is.
Yes. If
Right.
there's a solved problem.
I consider that
Caveat being
mentoring.
solved problem.
Yeah,
Right. So solved problem generally, but not by myself. So it doesn't have the cure for cancer.
Right.
But it will help you write a binary search algorithm in Python that doesn't overflow.
It's a thinking
Or-
documentation
or-
of Wikipedia.
So let me give you a concrete example.
It's better than that. Wikipedia is relatively low quality.
A thinking,
So-
a thinking version. Yeah.
You're thinking too low level.
Mhm.
Okay.
Yes.
A friend of mine created a LLM product, and how do you do it? By standing up a basic thing and then asking it what the next step was.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, because it's a solved problem, just not by him. And so he didn't have to go and reinvent the wheel. He just asked it, "Hey, how do I do this?" And then how do I do this? And what, and so,
Yeah.
Having that conversation is like, I don't know how to do a thing. How would you do the thing?
Mhm.
And so I gave it the problem I'm trying to solve is I need to deploy a RAG to an air-gapped environment. So there's no internet connection whatsoever. I need to train it and I do all these things.
Yeah.
And so I gave it the parameters. Hey, here's the things I need to do. And it spit out, here's the steps you need to go to. And here's some open source tools that can help you get that done.
Mhm.
And so now I have the steps. And when I'm ready, I can go dive in. Okay, for step one, give me the details of step one. And let's just walk through this. So I can use my engineering knowledge. I don't have to download all the information, all the details in my brain to get it done. It's like, I need to do this.
Mhm.
How do I do it? Write the code for it. Okay, that code looks reasonable. The tests are passing. Cool.
Yeah.
Next step, right?
This is the point. The tests are so important. We talked about that already. So if you express your willing, your idea, your inspiration in tests, and you write the test in a form that no matter if the code is looking A, B, C, or D variant, it doesn't matter. As long as the test becomes green and then refactored to blue and green again, blah, 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 then it's good. So even if you take AI or 10 other developers, the code will look different. It is not like the code, you cannot reproduce it.
Exactly.
And this is the point. The actual engineering work is still done by the human person who is defining what's to be done, actually. The expectations, the iterations, the feedback.
So you touched on something really important. I was having this philosophical conversation with Dave Harley. Okay. The code won't look the same. So if I'm using prompts to generate code, from run to run, the code will look different.
Yeah.
But
so
if I'm
the
using Java,
temperature will be very chaotic, like in that sense.
No, it's just that it'll implement it different ways.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
It's not hallucinating.
It's not incrementally improving. It's just rewriting it every time you prompt.
Yeah, if I just run that prompt through a pipeline.
Yeah, so it has no.
And then have it generate the code and then
What is
compile
this called? It has no continuity, right? So it has no continuity between reprompts.
But does it matter? Because if I'm writing code in Java and I run that same code without change through a pipeline, I'm going to get different hashes every single time.
Exactly. But the point is that is not very human-like, right? So we can, in chess, we often say that, oh, that's a machine move. Like a human would never intuitively make that move naturally without being instructed by an AI.
But does it
right?
matter? Right. So my question is if the
exactly.
Code,
so my point is it doesn't matter, but for some reason we can tell that felt unnatural. And it also makes refinement a bit harder, right? So if you're refining it by reprompting it rather than adding a test, you might risk getting further away from the solution with each step.
Well, but I think that comes back to it's just coding. And you
it's
need
just
to
an engineering problem at that point.
Understand what the new language is. You need to understand how to tell it, hey, this function's too messy, split
And
it up.
that has to be learned. So that's about the new workflows.
And
And
this is the new
uh,
workflow. Yeah.
and what I wanted to ask you specifically about workflows is how would you incorporate workflows into the engineering space? So not the code writing space, but the engineering space of who should I go talk to? You know, who should I ask? Who should I create a communication flow with? Who should I create a relationship with? Like, how would you get that workflow into every junior engineer's textbook that's just joining a new company next week? So how to foster strong
literally the hack
domain-specific relationship.
literally the hack I'm working on. This is literally the hack I'm working on. How do we feed all of our policies, procedures, documentation,
Exactly.
the
platform, essentially.
How do we feed all of our internal company stuff into a RAG so that people don't have to have tribal knowledge of even where to look for it? Because there's, depending on because, you could have stuff on Google Drive or SharePoint or, in GitHub or some other tool, because the tool sprawl in every company is a problem. But if you have the ability to go out there and point a tool to go suck all that information in and then train it on it, and then have people be able to interact with the RAG to say, I have a question about a thing. And I've got something minimal right now. I have something where you can ask it about information trained on like Dojo Consortium.
But
questions.
Inspired by a recent problem from a commercial airline that has AI-driven support ticket, sort of do a refund or some kind of compensation, not in accordance with its policies, it's hallucinated. When you create this AI to sort of embody the entire internal policies, in absence of static tests or some kind of, I don't know, like touch wood kind of strictness, how do you prevent the LLM from reinterpreting, the same way that they produced fresh code on every prompt? How would you prevent reinterpretation of the rules every time it's being prompted?
Yeah, no, I mean, you can set them up so that it'll answer, I don't know. Right? They don't have to hallucinate. This is not
that feels a little bit like a cop-out.
Why is that a cop-out?
I like that you've mentioned this, because I didn't
would you rather
come to this
because
conclusion?
if we're talking, right, like earlier you were talking about the animation.
Yeah, it will hallucinate with a high degree of confidence rather than saying it doesn't know. Yeah.
Let me finish, right? Is that I wasn't going to bullshit you and start making up shit I didn't know, right? I just said I don't know, right? Would you rather have a model return I don't know than just make stuff up? If it was important that it said I don't know, how is that?
I'm not sure. Right? Because sometimes it knows, I just didn't prompt it correctly, and I would like it to sort of err more on the side of giving me prompt help rather than telling me I don't know. Because the moment it says I don't know, I have a knee-jerk reaction towards reprompting.
So this, from an operational point of view, this is when you open a defect against the model to say, hey, there's training, because it's not about the prompt, it's about the training that we have. I asked this question, I couldn't get a good answer for it. You open a defect, and the team that owns that product fixes it.
And you need to determine if or differentiate if the AI is really lying or thinking that it's right. So if you talk to humans, you have that very often as well, that you get an answer where the person who is answering is convinced that this is true and correct. In reality, it is totally wrong. And so humans and AIs in that area are very similar. Most people don't say, I don't know that, especially in areas where they feel pressured that they are actually not allowed to know to not know something. They try to talk around that. The AI is doing exactly. The AI is doing the exact same, but in a slightly different way.
Yeah.
But the human person in that moment believes it, because we are, as humans, we cannot think negatively. We only can affirm it positively, which means that on a long enough timeline, when you talk all the time the same, even if it's wrong and you know about that, you will believe that on some point, which is the case why so many people, when they repeat that, they start to believe that. And if a third person asks, they ultimately believe what they say, even if it was wrong. And the AI is probably doing the same, because this is part of becoming an intelligent being. Otherwise, you would be, let's say, without error. And this is just an error-prone behavior of intelligent beings. This is so we don't know too many intelligent beings. So we only know humans and octopus and AI, who are as intelligent to say, but octopus can't speak. So we don't only know about AI and humans. And the point is that we should not compare AI too much to a reproducible computer, because we already have them. So we don't we compare AI more to us humans. So in my opinion, we try to fix AI where there is no fix needed. We only need to train it better, as well as we train humans to become better in what you do.
I saw somebody who was somebody was arguing with me about this topic, and they said that it was terrible that it wasn't a useful tool because you had to teach people how to use it. And I'm like, you just described every single tool that's ever been created. You're just looking for a reason to say AI is bad.
But from the context of platform engineering, to bring it a little bit back into today's topic for, let's say, a final round of opinions.
Yeah.
Like, just feeding it company policy and then hoping it won't hallucinate seems like a very misguided, perhaps naive way of using it.
No, you don't just feed it company policy and hope it doesn't hallucinate. It's engineering. You're building a product. You're using AI as part of your product.
So what's the feedback loop there?
Well, so the feedback loop is, it's funny. If you go and ask ChatGPT how to test a RAG, it'll tell you exactly how to test a RAG. And you build tests for it to make sure that you get the appropriate responses to a set of known questions.
Fair.
Right? You also, from my experience, it's also a really good way of finding defects in your documentation itself. Because when you ask a question and you expect a response and you get a response, and you see where that's coming from, you can find holes in your documentation. And so you get an accelerated feedback loop on something that has typically not had a good feedback loop, which is docs. So yeah, you test it, you write tests for it. This is just another product.
But to what degree can you do that with a low-code solution like ChatGPT, right? Because ChatGPT doesn't link sources. Like, there are other LLMs that link sources, right? So you can say, hey, here's a company documentation, find me this answer to this, and tell me why you think this way. Like, tell me what from my documentation convinced you to give me this answer. ChatGPT won't allow you to do that because it's been trained on a lot of proprietary data.
ChatGPT is just one thing. There's a whole bunch of different models out there.
So to what degree can I just do that as an engineer without being proficient in machine learning or data science or just deep learning and sort of...
So the caveat, I'm at the beginning of my journey, okay? But the tools, the platforms for this are so much better than they were before.
Absolutely.
So you don't need to be a data scientist because there's LLMs out there or just models out there that you can use to help train another model.
There are models out there that will help you train on another model.
Yeah. So if you ask,
wrap my head around that.
Yeah, ask ChatGPT how to train a RAG.
Okay. Interesting.
And it'll tell you what models you could look at to go and help you train other models, open source models. Right.
That's very interesting. And I'm assuming it will hallucinate, so you'll also learn how to prompt and how to test and how to...
I will tell you that the very first thing you should do is ask it the last time it was trained. And when I asked it a couple days ago, because I was trying to do some Svelte development, and I don't know Svelte, it was giving me answers that only worked on pre-1.0 Svelte.
Because it was trained predating the new version.
Yeah, it said I was trained in April 2023. I'm like, okay, well, I can't I can't ask you anything about Svelte 2
Yeah.
if you don't even know about Svelte 1. So
And if you do ask it, it will likely hallucinate with Svelte 1
no, it
stuff.
won't. No, I mean, it doesn't know about 2. It'll just tell me what it knows about Beta Svelte, right? Which was correct for Beta Svelte. It just doesn't, Svelte is changing so fast. Their API is breaking all over the place.
You personally, Brian, like you're doing a lot of things, and you seem to be a very well-rounded software professional.
I mean, I solve problems, and so
exactly. So where in your workflow, if you had limited capability, limited capacity to sort of focus your attention, where would you use AI assistance the most?
I'd have to tell me what you mean by limited.
If you couldn't spend your entire day prompting, that you would want to establish a, let's say, regular workflow.
I mean, I would start with coding assistance.
Okay.
Because it'll make you so much faster. You'll spend less time figuring out how to do a thing that you haven't done for a while, or it's the first time.
Even in a known code base, in a known language, in a known business context.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, because you have to keep remembering, if you haven't done a particular thing in a while, at least I mean, I don't have an encyclopedic memory that I can call up every single thing I've ever wanted to do, right? Regex is a really good example. Who memorizes regex?
Brilliant. Yeah, brilliant.
Right. Just ask ChatGPT for regex. I get a regex. That was my first use case. It's like, this is bullshit. And then I tried. It's like, oh, well, that regex worked.
And don't forget that Copilot and JetBrains AI are learning together with you. So this is the reason why you need to connect your GitHub account to do that. So in the very beginning, so I'm using Copilot now for, I don't know, many months. And in the beginning, it was quite strange, the output. So it wasn't like I would do things. It was different. It was not wrong. It was simply entirely different. And
it
today,
was very generic.
Exactly. It was the generic thing, how probably Stack Overflow,
like a non-onboarded team member that you're not used to working with.
Exactly. But now, when I, for example, let's take a really quick example. I do in React, we use recoil, and I do selectors there. Then I have the state, which is an interface up in the file, and then it does generate one getter setter after the other, one selector after the other, in a pattern I'm used to, with in an entirely new project. So the project is entirely new, and the AI does know how I want to have it.
Because it remembered which prompts you took and which ones you discarded, so it started waiting more.
So it became better.
Take a look at how often you Google for something and go, oh, you know what? I can
exactly.
use an LLM.
Exactly. Yeah.
And the things only get better. So and I agree with Brian that code completion and suggestions are actually my main thing when I go to AI. The second thing is the prompting part, where I can discuss the code and the solution with AI. For example, I needed to fix a component quickly today, which a colleague created who is not working anymore for me. And it was a large component, a very large component, not very well documented. And I thought to myself, oh, that's not good. What I see here is not good. And the problem was I had not much time to fix that problem. So while I'm watching it, I just asked the AI to give me some hints. Where can be the problem? Where AI do you see the problem here, right? So I was not giving too much context, just saying that this and this is what the client tells me. I was copying the text of the ticket inside and let the AI do, and then. The points, the AI was pointing out several things which were not directly the solution, but they pointed to the right position where I needed to look for the the solution. And it just helped me to get over this gap of finding everything out for myself. Because the point is, this is just a function in a random code base I will never work on in the next 3 months again. So there is no value in 100% understanding this legacy function.
I mean, if you look at it that way, the AI usage is not new. So the neural network usage is not new, because you were relying on a different AI previously, which is Google's search autocomplete and PageRank, right? So you were using that AI, which is fairly primitive compared to LLMs, but it was fed on the same corpus of data in order to index, in order to sort of jumpstart, have a shortcut to the index, to the exact problem to the exact solution to your problem, and it contextually understanding that, hey, when I'm in a React code base and I'm looking for this function, I don't want some weird Erlang equivalent of a function that has the same name, which is why sometimes the Google search results were useless. 10 years ago, 20 years ago, sometimes when you put something into Google, page one was useless, right? So that has now changed. So it improved to the degree that page one is really useful. And actually, the first two results have to be nail on the head. Otherwise, you'll reprompt the search query. And the AIs are getting better to the degree that you no longer have to open the browser. So you can stay in your context and rather write code and then keep cognitive load primarily on the business problem rather than writing code. So then you just jump starting how quickly you can get to that sort of means of actually having the compiler understand what you wanted, which business problem you're actually solving.
Yeah.
Yep.
Right. So it's an iteration, it's an evolution of a solution that we already had, which was Google indexing the entire internet and giving us sort of indexed access to documentation. And I think AI is very good at that because it has also seen, GitHub. It has been trained on everything that's in public GitHub repositories. So it saw a lot of code solutions. It's just that it's very hard to prompt them, right? It's very hard to prompt, hey, I'm having a piping system and I have to write a formula for equalizing flow. How should I do that? And I don't know what to Google. But the AI can tell me, you need an implementation of the Zinich algorithm, and here it is. Right? Like that's really useful because it helps me sort of make that leap of, well, I would have to study a bunch of CS books to actually understand like which spectrum of the algorithm space am I in, and to be able to actually do research and actually learn what to prompt. Whereas holistically speaking, it has absorbed the entire corpus of the internet. So at least all of the solved problems, it is at my fingertips. Solved problems being the caveat. And a lot of platform engineering concerns simply aren't solved problems because they're unique to your business. So I'm assuming AIs, LLMs will be useful in at least addressing the tooling, the solved problem aspect of platform engineering in the near future. So you could say, hey, I have this kind of friction in my team. What is our next steps for establishing a platform engineering culture? Or something equivalent so that you can have a conversation with a specialized LLM in that regard, which is business agnostic. And then you can sort of start teaching it, what the business is, what prompts the business is adopting.
As long as you don't treat it unsafe. And,
I mean, wouldn't you trust it to just understand that, hey, here are the ups and downs and just,
no,
because Google with Gemini is having this whole woke problem of, it's been trained on everything and then it got a little bit more, it got a little bit too much DEI, and now it's sort of hallucinating way, way more than a human would in order to sort of get across some kind of culture, some kind of level of censorship. If you decide to censor safe because you disagree with it, and the data shows that it might not be good for you, would you censor it from the AI, or would you want the AI to give you the data and tell you, hey, this is probably not a good fit?
I'm building a platform tool to solve problems. I don't want to give it bad solutions.
You're building a platform tool to solve that. You want to give it but who decides what a good solution is?
Our organization does.
Fair. I mean, fair. It's like organizations that's doing safe and that doesn't want to do safe. I wouldn't want it to be prompted that way. All right. Gentlemen, anything to pitch? We're over 2 hours now. How are you doing?
If you're a U.S. citizen and you want to work on some really hard problems related to platform engineering, check out Defense Unicorns. We have positions open today, right now.
Link below.
And we hire for culture.
Unfortunately, I'm not a US citizen, as you might hear.
Sorry.
Yeah. Okay, that was actually a great session today. I think the last quarter, or was it the third? I don't know, was
Sorry.
a little bit off topic, I think. So AI was a little bit drifting away. So something which is probably not happened to AI, just to humans, that we start to drift away because we are nerds and geeks, and we love to try to talk about other stuff. And that's the muse. That is intrinsic motivation. That is inspiration. This is just what we want to do in that moment, and this is
Beautiful.
nice to have that. And I quickly want to just mention one more thing about the entire thing we've discussed today. It is so important to understand your role in that industry, your role as an engineer. And I really point out engineer now because I don't want to use the term developer, because developer does mean something different than the actual engineer. And it is very important to understand that all the topics we're talking on this channel, Brian is talking about, Dennis, me, everyone, here on this guide is all about doing something which doesn't mean or doesn't affect yourself. It affects the surrounding, the environment, the things around it, the company, the organization. Brian just said that. Who is determining if it's good or bad? It is the organization. And we all should think about that. We are contributing to something higher than we are. And if we don't do that, if our priority is just to be good at programming, just to be good at low-level languages, we are just master crafts. We are masters in that. But we are not contributing to others like we would do in the engineering sense. So this is what we should take away from today to become better organizations, better teams, and better places to be in. To have a cultural good team is when everyone in the team is going for this engineering aspect. Then you will have a better culture in your team because you continuously try to learn new things. You are open to failure. Iteration and let's say and experiments are something on a daily basis, which is totally fine. Experiments are always totally fine to fail in order to learn and be successful in new things. And I heard so many voices on LinkedIn bragging, elitism, perfectionism, and it's so destructive. There's so much bad things going on LinkedIn right now where people talking bad about others while they are not really aware of that they are just crafters in this stage. They are not thinking about the engineering aspects because it's hard to change. It's hard to become an engineer. It's hard to stay on that level to become on that point that you say, okay, I'm comfortable with being a little bit more uncomfortable, like I just would be if I just do what I want to do because I'm the silo in this company and I keep things as they are. And this is what we all should learn. Software engineering is about the ongoing design process. It's a design engineering process. And if we want to do that right and good, we need to become more than that we are just by ourselves alone, the crafters. We need to step above from craftsmanship to engineering. And this is what we really should have on focus. I just wanted to tell that a little bit because I'm a little bit concerned about the last weeks, what I saw there. It is at the moment on LinkedIn too much about individual skill and not so much about team contribution, helping others, mentoring others, and getting the industry up and running again. We are too much talking about individual perfectionism, and this is not good. Just wanted to say that today. Yeah.
Brilliant. Brian, any last takes? Any favorite bits from today's episode?
Stay current and engineer your local platform as well. Your repository requires platform engineering. Make it hard to make mistakes, use it on board. And I agree with everything Adrian said.
Beautiful.
Cool. Okay. By the way, I released an article on my blog about what I've just said in detail, probably this night or tomorrow morning.
We already saw the preview. It's great.
It is a distinction between the apprenticeship model up to Mastercraft and real engineering, and why people actually don't get the difference, and we should get the difference to become aware of it. But I don't start again now. So thank
tomorrow,
you.
Hold on before we do the thank you. Tomorrow is about agile planning and estimation. So it's a conversation. It's more about the human elements of it. If we can have another AI conversation about it, I'm all for it. But it's mostly about the human elements of it. Like, there are some elements about it that are uncomfortable. There are some elements about it that are nerve-wracking to people, and they want to overdo it or underdo it, avoid it, upload it to an LLM. That's what we're gonna talk about tomorrow, because it was requested by our regulars. We had a sort of after-show coffee, and it seemed to hit a right chord, and we're honoring that request tomorrow for agile planning and estimation.
Can you post the link, because I somehow don't see the link to the event?
Sure, I can post the link now.
Am I not invited as a speaker? Can it be?
Yes, you are. I was very diligent this week.
Okay, I don't see it in my events tab.
We have so many events that I can believe that you can't see it because we have a lot of events recently. Also, Adrian, you made a little hoopla and you overbooked your week. So you have an extra stream on Friday. You want to tell us about what that is about?
Yes, on Friday I start a series, at least one season, of live coding. It's actually a jam, where I dedicate a little bit to the idea of PWA. So we already saw this PWA I'm working on, which is actually an experimental app I was using with the same tech stack like we use, just to test out things outside of production. That was a personal thing, and I decided to finish this app, actually to the point that the PWA itself is finished as a client, standalone, working as a single product. And I want to do this live in several sessions. I want to talk about why I'm doing those things, what my decisions are, the feedback I get from the audience, of course, how we do things, how we implement all the stuff we waffle about on the show, like TDD and continuous integration, continuous delivery, pipelining,
can we see you deploy? Can we see part of the
Exactly.
platform? Okay.
And how the things we have talked about, React, we have talked about TypeScript, linting, Tailwind, and why all those things are actually good for engineering. And this is what I want to show as well, that actually a single person can create those things in a way where another person, like Camilla, for example, who can join then, because she's working on a similar thing, can just join the project and continue working without any form of onboarding. And this is engineering. This is where you can scale. So every time you have something which is so highly crafted, so over-engineered that no one else is understanding it before, not working 2 days with that, it's not good. It is you failed in your stuff. And this project shall show everyone a little bit how it's actually working. And of course, the people who are in the OTJ community, in our Circle community, will have access to the app as well to test it out.
But obfuscated code is so cool, Adrian.
Can we golf it? Can we like really minimize all the code and just
we can use Google Closure compiler to minify
anyway,
it.
Brian has a hard stop in a few minutes. Brian, in the name of the OTJ community, I'd like to thank you for becoming a regular guest at this point, and for really bringing your best and your charisma and your sort of vibe to these episodes. Really appreciate it. We'll be getting some very good feedback on your topics and your presence. And today we've held up, I think 60 people peak live, and we're still at about 35, 40. So you've been helping a lot. You've been teaching the community a lot, and it's very much appreciated. We appreciate you. I appreciate you. Thank you so much for being with us today.
I mean, I have opinions. Guys, thanks so much for having me on again. I'll, if I come up with anything else interesting, I'll let you know.
Hope we helped you with that conference talk that you're preparing for.
You did.
So we're looking forward for that one. And then I would say, since we have a hard stop, and I think we're a little bit over time anyway, thank you, everyone. Thank you for watching. See you tomorrow. See you in 2 days. See you on next Wednesday, because we're doing that every week. Okay.
Like, share, subscribe.
Goodbye, everyone. Yeah, thumbs up and
Bye-bye.
stuff like this, right?
Sure.
Goodbye, everyone. some music and some clips coming from the last shows. Goodbye, everyone.
Thank you.
There's two kinds of one thing. Number one, there's the engineering feedback, right?
Okay.
I'm going to deliver this change today to find out if it breaks it. And then there's the business feedback. I'm going to deliver the smallest slice of this next feature to find out if it's valuable and deliver that and get feedback. But
Figure out if it's safe to merge and whether it's safe to continue with these requirements.
yeah,
That's all.
just because it passes all the tests doesn't mean that it doesn't break something in production once it finally gets to a production environment. I try to have a high level of confidence, but we're never 100% sure.
Yeah.
And so we want to get feedback as rapidly as possible on the engineering thing. People tell me there's no value in delivering anything until it's feature complete. No. I know it's stable. I want to make sure we're on the right track. I don't want to invest too much money in this idea. I don't want to assume my idea is correct. I want to assume my idea is incorrect. It's a scientific experiment. I'm trying to invalidate the hypothesis. And we should be ecstatic when it's successful and just accept when it's not.
Mm-hmm.
And then how do we change course to make it to chase the value instead of just assuming value?
I would like to add something to the term of confidence. I think confidence doesn't mean that you are 100%, as you said, 100% safe to deploy. It's about to be confident that you can handle a situation even if something happened, but you expect feedback. So what you definitely get is feedback. And if the feedback is a negative, you can react quickly on that. So this is confidence. It's not about, oh, I'm 100% sure that nothing will happen. I think this is a big misconception.
No, I agree. And people focus on the wrong thing. I want to make sure that everything is perfect before we deliver. That's the wrong thing.
The thing that I lack, let's say, from ChatGPT is that when I prompted something, it'll never stop and ask me a question. It'll never ask, if I prompted to do something, it will never say, oh, Dennis, that's actually quite broad. Do you mean this way or that way? It never prompts me. It never asks me a question. And it is that inability to have a conversation with me like that that really prevents it from being useful. Because when I tell it, because when I tell it to do something stupid, I would like it to stop and ask me, hey, Dennis, that's a bit wide. Do you want it this way or that way? There's quite a few. Where do you want me to go with this? But first,
I never thought about it like this, but this is actually a very important point. So I have a discussion, but it's more like I am the person asking.
I'm correcting
all the time, but
it's
I don't get real feedback.
Don't do this.
You know?
Don't do this. It's like talking to a child. It's don't touch that thing. Don't lick the power outlet. I said don't lick the power outlet. That's the type of conversation I have with ChatGPT. But really what I would want to have is have a conversation where it stops and it becomes skeptical and it asks me a question.